Alright, so imagine this, you're waking up in the morning and your email inbox is flooded. There are a lot of emails, some of them needs immediately reply, others you just need to archive, and there are those where you need to schedule a meeting. And this is a lot of manual work that you and I always need to do. But imagine if we could automate this with the help of an agentic workflow. And this is exactly what Antonio asked in our school community. And in this course, we will build exactly that. So this workflow reads all your unread emails. From there, decide what needs to do, either to craft a reply message or also archive it or send out an invitation. And we are not just throwing code at this problem, we are doing this probably step by step. And so here's the roadmap. First, we start with the sketching phase. So we plan out the workflow on paper before we write a single line of code. Second, then we will dive into the Vercel AI SDK kit and learn about structured outputs. And this is the key to getting reliable responses from AI models. Then I will show you how we can leverage Google Gemini 2.5 Pro to come up with an initial code base. And you will see how quickly we can get a functional email processor up and running. And finally, we will rebuild the whole workflow using the Mastra framework. And this gives you two different approaches, so you can choose what works best for your project. So by the end of this course, you will have a fully working agentic workflow in place. So enough talking, and now let's build this thing together. Before we write any line of code, let's think through what we actually want to achieve. So we have here our emails on Gmail, and then we have Google Calendar to organize our meetings, right? But how do we now connect or wire up these two? I see two options that we can do here. The first one is actually having one big agent. This agent then would have access to the Gmail tool as well to the Google Calendar tool. And then we would start out and first read all the unread tools. So we would then put this into the prompt, right? So this would be the prompt to start out and read the unread emails, and then from there get the intent and what to do, and then finally do the action. And so we have here, this is one agent. I would say this is like the organizer agent. And we can connect these two on Gmail and the Google Calendar easily with the help of MCP. We could do this, no problem at all. But I think this is not really reliable because this agent here is doing a lot of things, and this never is a good idea that to give so much complexity to only one unit. What we also can do is another and more reliable approach, what we call like agentic workflows. And here we only have still a deterministic flow that we follow, and in some steps we still have just normal code execution. On the other, we have then some AI agent interactions. So from here, we take the Gmail again as the start point, and then we have here just a normal function, read all unread emails. And here we would then connect this to Gmail with the help of OAUTH. We see this later how this works, okay? But basically what we are doing with OAuth is we go here on Google Cloud and create an app. And with this app we get then the credentials. Credentials JSON. And then we ask the user, on behalf of the user, hey, can we read your emails, and also can we manage your calendar activities? And then the user need to confirm or decline, of course. And then we get back an access token. And with this access token, we can, on behalf of the user, read the emails, send emails, and so on. but as I mentioned, then we will have there a deep dive later on. So first step, read on unread emails. Then what we need to do is we have the content of an email. Let me also, maybe this here is an email. Let's give it maybe another color. So we would do this in a loop, right? So we have for each email, we would go through this workflow. Then we pass down the content of the email, and here we would have like a detect intent step or function. And what we're doing here is we get the raw content of this email and then send it to a large language model, like here. Let's say we just take here OpenAI, and then we have here the instruction of a prompt to analyze the email, and from there get an intent of either reply, make a meeting, archive, or human review. So here we define the classification rules or the business rule inside of this prompt. Okay. And then what we get back is we say, okay, when you give this back, this information, we want to have this in a nice structured format. This is called a structured output. So instead of having just a free text back, we say to the large language model, if you craft the answer with the intent, then please make it in this specific format that we define. And this format would look like this. So we still have the email. Maybe we have had the email subject. We can email body. And then we have the intent here. And this could then is an email where we can choose is it either reply, a meeting, archive, or human review. Okay, this is the idea. And with this information that we get back is we can make then here simply a routing. So we have this, we have then here our route templates. This would be then encoding just a simple switch or if else condition. And if we have then the case on, if we have the case reply, so here we have the case reply, we call the reply action. So the, or yeah, let's say it function because I have used here the term of function. So be consistent here. Then we have like the case of meeting. Again, here we need the Gmail icon because here we use Gmail again. We have the meeting, function that uses then the Google Calendar on behalf of the user to craft a meeting. And then we have the other two cases of simply archive. Here again we use the Gmail. And human review as well. So this is in a nutshell the flow, and this was now only for one email. So this whole flow needs to be done for each email, and this is then simply a whole loop. So if we zoom out in this, we have then here simply where is it for? So for each email, we repeat the step until we don't have no more unread emails. So before we actually jump now to the code. Let's have a look on the part of the credentials here. So getting the credentials and also the access on behalf of the user to actually read their emails and also make calendar activities. And once we understand this part and also have the preparation for this, then we can dive into the code. And first, as I mentioned, I will show you this with simply in our own code style. We write it with the help of the Vercel AI SDK kit. And then in the other approach, I will show you later on with the help of a framework. And in this case, it would be Mastra. But of course, you can do this whole workflow, agentic approach and many other frameworks as you like. For example, LangGraph or also the Gemini Flow kit, I guess is the name. Whatever, I guess you get the idea. So now let's move on to the part where we get the credentials. So let's have now a closer look how we actually access the user's Gmail as well the calendar. So Gmail as well calendar, they provide an API. And if we want to access this API, we need an access token, right? And in order to get this access token, we follow our approach called OAuth flow. And this is a nice standardized way of getting the user's permission to do certain things on his behalf. And imagine this back then in the days, if I would like to do some things for you, maybe like sending out an email, you would need to give me your username and password so I can send an email for you. But the problem was that I could actually do anything. Like I could also like delete emails or do other stuff if I would like to do this. And now with this approach, we are just requesting from the user, hey, we would like to read your emails and also send emails. And then the user's confirming this and we get back access token. And with this access token, we can only do these two things. So this is a really nice approach. And let me show you how this works in detail. So first of all, we create an app on the Google Cloud Server. And this is then basically also showing here when I guess you know it, when this pop-up appears, hey, this app would like to get your Google email. This is done on behalf, so therefore we create this app. But then we get a credentials file where we have more information about this app that we configured, and we need this credentials file in order to exchange it then later. So first of all, the user visits our application, then we check for a stored refresh token. And if this exists, fine, then we can already use it on behalf of the user. But if not, then we go here and generate an authorization URL. Then we redirect to Google. And then we show to the user the Google login and the consent screen. User clicks allow, and then what is happening is that we redirect back to our application, but with the authorization code. So here Google needs to know where to reach our application under which URL. And from there, from the URL, we extract this authorization code and we exchange this code for a token on the Google side. So then we have the token and then we store it and then we show, hey, everything was all right. And then we can now use this token to make, where is it? We then have this token and then we can actually do sending out emails, reading the emails, and also here on the calendar, read the calendars and also write new meetings. So let me show you now how we can craft our app. Therefore, visit the console cloud Google and in here just write credentials. First of all, we need to, of course, enable the APIs. So therefore, we first search for Gmail API, click on this one here. Then I've already activated it, but here make sure to click activate, then refresh the page and you should see manage and also try this API. And the same we do for the calendar. Again, activate it. And once we have activated these two, we now craft here our credentials. So therefore we search for credentials. Click this one here, and then we here create new credentials, and then we select here OAuth client ID. So we are creating here the client, and we choose here a desktop application, and let's give it a nice, good naming. Let's say Agentic Organizer Flow. So, and now we have this pop-up coming up and we download the JSON, because in here is all the client information that we need in order to exchange later then for the token. So you get this JSON, rename it to credentials, and you see here we have like the client ID. So Google uses this to identify our app on the Google Cloud and knows, okay, what APIs are enabled. And yeah, there are a lot of other information, but what is interesting and that we need to configure is this one. So this is the redirect URI. This is exactly the thing that we've seen here, redirect back to the app. And here we need to configure how Google can reach our application. And I've prepared here a little script that shows you how to do this. And here we just spin up a simple Express web server that runs locally on a port 3000. And here we need to now select the right endpoint, and the endpoint is, where is it? Okay, so on my side it's actually the root path, so then this here is fine, because you can see here this authorize function, and this is then directly initialized here on the root path on my Express web server. And what it does is it first checks if we have like already the token. So where is it here in the flow? It checks here this check for the store token, and if it has the token, then we are good to go. Otherwise it will initialize the flow, and we can see it here is this part. So check for the token. If it's not there, then we initialize the authenticate, and this will then start the process. So let me show you this. If you will get this code, so then you can simply just run npm e to install all the packages. It's also described here in the comments what you need on packages, and also again how to craft the application on Google Cloud. And now let's run this web server npx test. So, and then we already here inside of the flow. And also, of course, I forgot to mention this, the scopes. We defined also the scopes here. These are important because this is what we will request. So you see here Gmail read, Gmail send, as well the calendar. And then if you search for words used, it's exactly here the scopes, and all used here in this authenticate function that is exactly triggering this part here. So now we go and select our Google account. Here we see that this is not verified, this app. This is fine because this is only for testing purposes, so therefore click on continue. And here we now need to select all the things because we need it, right? And then we click on continue, and then we see authentication successful. Please return to the console. What is happening here under the hood is now that we got the token. So if we go back again to, sorry, where is it? Here. So we've now exchanged the code for the token, and then we stored in this token.json file. So with this token in place, we will later on make all the API calls for me on my behalf. And then I also have here an endpoint where we directly can test out if it's working. So here, first of all, with the endpoint list emails, we will calling this function list unread emails. And what it does, you see we have now this auth client in place that we pass in, and then we use this Gmail to list our emails. There we have a query in place, so it's unread, my user ID and maximum results 5, and then just print out. And the same goes here for the calendar. Again, need to specify the version as again the auth client, and then we create here just a simple example calendar event. So now let's go back here, and now we will list the emails. Great. So sorry, now it's working because I've already used the refresh token, and you can only use it then once, and therefore on your side it should work then very well. And so with this token in place, now it's working. You see it here, we fetched emails, and then the same with create event. So then if we go here to my calendar, we see test event from Node. How cool is that? So with this information now in place, we have now access to these two services that we need. And now we will dive into the next section to see how we can use it and build our own agentic workflow with the help of the Vercel AI SDK kit. Okay, before we start diving into the creation process, I want to highlight this part here. And the reason is because I want to think about the approach when we now start developing the intent functionality here. So for example, let's say we go with OpenAI. So we have a look on the OpenAI SDK or API, and we would start developing and to get a structured output back. And then we finish the development, it's working, but let's say then Anthropic releases a new model that's way better, and now we need to also want to use that model. We need to rewrite our code, and this is not really efficient. And trust me, if you've done this in the past, if you logged into some LM provider, it's hard to change down the code. And therefore we use the Vercel SDK kit, and what it does is we can easily switch here the provider. So it's a nice abstraction, and the handling is very nice. So for example, here we say, here you can see it, here we can have a generate text functionality where we use Grok free beta with the prompt. And if we would like to use OpenAI, it's like easy as that, as importing OpenAI from this library here and then specify the model, and that's it. We don't have to change nothing else, only here the model. And you see also for Anthropic, for Google, and it's very powerful. So this is what I want to highlight, that we use the Vercel SDK kit for that reason. And the other concept that I want you to know is the concept of a structured output. So imagine this, when we give here the email content into a large language model, we need to somehow get back what kind of email intent it is. And usually if you interact with a large language model, we get back also a free text. But here is the problem. With this free text that we get back, it can vary every single time we make a request. So sometimes the intent is hidden like in the first sentence, maybe sometimes in the second. And this is not really reliable, and we cannot really work with this kind of response. And what we need is some predictability, some kind of organized information that we get back. And here we come into the solution of a structured output. And as you can imagine from the name, we structure the output regarding to a specific schema. And the nice way is, so we give like the large language model a schema or a plan. Hey, if you respond, then always please respond in this format back. And with this plan that we like give to the large language model, we have a plan or like a reliability, what we can expect, and from that we can work with the response. And also here AI SDK kit provides a very nice solution for that, and here it's called the generate object. And the generate object generates structured data from a prompt. So what we do here is we call this function here. Again, we define the model that we want to use. But remember, not all models support this functionality of structured outputs, but this model does. And here in the schema, we use sort to actually define the plan or like the schema we want to have back. In this case, this is an object containing a recipe object with the name, ingredients, and the steps. And then if we get what we get back is like our object with these attributes. And we will do the same, but only here where we define like we have like an attribute with the name of intent, and here it would then standing like reply, meeting, archive, and so on. But I guess later on when we work with it, you really grasp the idea of why this is such a powerful technique. Okay, so remember, with these two concepts in mind, we now can start developing our workflow. So the nice part is that we don't need to start from scratch. So let me show you how I leverage Gemini 2.5 Pro to come up with the initial code base that we need. So what I've done here is to paste in our diagram and then with the following prompt here to describe the workflow that I want. So basically first get all unread emails from Gmail, then in a loop for each email get the intent based on the subject and body to either reply, meeting, human review or archive, and then do this with the help of the Vercel AI SDK kit, where we send email subject to an LM, get back a structured output with the intent, and then use the structured output result to route to a proper function, and for the reply we use another LM come with a structured output, and so on. And the same for the meeting. For human review we store it in a markdown, and archive just archive using a Gmail API. Keep it simple, apply KISS and Yagni principles, also include code good practices in logging, and use only Typescript and the Vercel AI SDK kit. And then I've referenced down here to the documentation of the AI SDK kit, as you can see it here, either for the introduction as well for the generate object, and so that Gemini can grab this content and bring it into the context when defining a solution. And it's important that you activate here the URL context, otherwise it's not taking these URL content into consideration. So, and then we have here the plan that we can review, and for me it was fine actually. And then I said, yeah, we already have the token in place and the permission given in this path, and then we Gemini came up with the initial code base after that, and also with the instruction how to set up the project with Typescript and installing the right dependencies, and then yeah, to create these files. So what I've done, here's the structure, and what I've done, I've copied over these code blocks and created the structure. And so just working here smart, not hard. And I will also share the link here of this prompt conversation with Gemini, that you have also understanding how I use it. But again, I'm not that smart as you think. I'm just leveraging here AI to come up with an initial code base to start then. Yeah, and from there we now can continue to go through what Gemini created for us and then move further. Okay, so let's start with the main file, and here this is where we build and manage our workflow. So what we're doing here is first initialize the clients that we need. First we get the auth client, and then we pass in the auth client here later for the Gmail client and the calendar client. Then we get all the unread emails, and then we loop through each email here in this for loop. And then we have like here a try catch block, and then here we get the email content. So we are concatenating this with this backtick approach, where we then have the subject and the body together, and this whole email content we get pass into the get email intent function, and you see we get back here an object, so a structured output. And based on this intent attribute here, we then call the appropriate action. So in case reply, we call the handle reply, a meeting handle meeting, where we then also pass in here the appropriate client and the email. Here the same for also achieving the task, we pass in the calendar client and the email, human review and archive the same. And that's basically it. Here's some more logging in the catch case, and that's it. You see, really simple, really beautiful, all organized. And I think this is still the best approach if you're starting out. Don't use an overwhelming framework, just use it in this way where you understand exactly what is going on. And now we go into here the get email client, because this is the most interesting one and the most powerful. Here you see we have the generate object from the Vercel AI kit, and we are using the GPT-4o mini model, and here we have our intent schema. So if we have a look on this, how this looks like, we have the intent, So this is an enum, so it could only one of these values, and therefore this is very good to use an enum, because otherwise sometimes it could be like reply or reply back if we would not specify it in this way. So therefore go with an enum approach, but therefore we can always make sure to get either reply, meeting, archive, or human review. And here we describe, of course, this attribute a little further with the describe functionality here. Then we have the email type also, so is it a personal, newsletter, transactional, and so on, and the confidence level in the intent classification, so between 0 and 1. So, and here we have also defined the other schemas. So for example, here for replying back, the reply schema, the subject and the body. Then we have here the meeting schema, the title, the date time, and the duration, of course. And yeah, now let's get back here to the get email intent back. So here we have here we give in the schema, right? So we want this structured output back. And here we have the prompt. And I guess this is where the most magic happens, and it's also depending on the quality. So here you craft, I guess you need to find it out on your own on terms like context engineering and also on prompt engineering, what works best in your scenario. For me, it was so funny when I tested out it way back. It took all my emails from 2-3 years, and then it responded back to like newsletters, and it was replying in my name, hey, thank you for like sending me this newsletter. It was like weird but funny to see. And therefore what I've done is I've instructed this prompt to only look forward and ignore basically all this transactional newsletter stuff, and only reply to real people when they would reach out to me. And for the meeting setup, I also defined it here to only look for future events, because it crafted also meetings for me for events that happened like 2 years ago. So it makes no sense at all. And therefore what we're doing is to pass in the current date to know, so that the LM knows, okay, when processing this email from the information to consider it or not. So, and here basically what we define here are the business rules, your business rule or business logic. And as I said, it can depend on your use case. So this is just an example how I achieved this. So for meetings, rules for intent classification, meeting. So how do you know if it's a meeting? So only for emails requesting, proposing future meetings or appointments with the recipient, not for event announcement, past events, or educational content or courses. How do we reply? So only for personal emails that require human response, not for newsletter, transaction, promotion, and so on. Archive for informational content, newsletter recipes, past events, notifications, so everything. It's also listed here, and human review for important emails that are unclear for require careful consideration. Yeah, and then here, of course, we pass in the email subject, the sender email, and the content. And that's basically my prompt. So, and from there, we have then also the generate reply. So this is done later. If we have a look here on this action. On this action here, you see the handle reply. Again, we call this function here, and you see this is also just using a generate object, because here we actually know that we want to reply to this email, and therefore we need to also inject the content, and then based on the following email draft a professional reply. And here we can also then define the tone that we would like to send, or like also the language. So Antonio, for you, because this was a request, here we can also then specify return in the emails, return in the language of the original email, for example. So if we get an email here written in German, we would reply now in German. If it's like in English, we would reply in English. And so this is the reply action, so nothing special at all. It's again just we use the generate object to craft our content, email content, and the subject. And what we're doing then is just using the Gmail API and for sending it out or triggering the action. So because we defined the content with the help of the generated object, and then we pass it right in here. So that's all. And we do the same here with the meeting. So here we have the AI generate meeting details. Again, here, these are the rules. We pass in the content and we got back like our meeting schema. You see it, the title, the date, time, and the duration. And with this information, we can now fill here the event object that we then now use in the API call. So it's really simple. We actually know what we're doing here. And this is a very nice approach because there's no overlay of any kind of framework. And we do the same here. So for the handle human review, I've just decided to just write it down as a markdown file in a folder. And the handle archive is just using, again, the Gmail API to archive this email. So I hope you get the idea what is happening here. So with this nice separation of concerns that we have, so here we have all the AI interaction with the schemas. Here we are defining the OAUTH client. Here we have our Gmail client. Here we have a simple logger. Here you can also see all the reviews that was stored. And that's it. So how we do now fire this up? We need here the OpenAI token. So let's grab one here on the platform openai.com, craft your project, and then we create here a new secret. This is then our email workflow processor. We need to select a project. I just select anyone. So now we have our API key. So this is like the default API key name for OpenAI when you use the Vercel SDK kit, and then paste it in here with this .env name. And now let me clean also the reviews folder and the audit log folder. And now let's navigate into this folder. Okay, so we see that our workflow is working as expected. Here and there are little issues that I need to fix, but overall it's working. So I want to leave the section now with the two concepts that we learned. First of all, the AI SDK kit that allows us to easily switch between LLM providers and still have a very nice abstraction and functionality in there. So check it out. And also the concept of a structured output, where we basically tell the large language model how we want the answer back. And with this, we have a good reliability or a good structure that we can rely on this information that we can back and work with it. In the next section, I will show you how we can build exactly the same like we did, but only with the Mastra framework. And the Mastra framework contains a lot of nice goodies, and I'm really excited to show you. So let's get started. So let's dive into the Mastra section, and we are here on the documentation side on Mastra. So Mastra is an open source TypeScript framework that allows you to build AI applications, and they're giving you all the building blocks you need. So you can build with Mastra AI agents that have memory, and you can also build deterministic workflows, where we will have a closer look today. And the nice part is they're providing us here a local dev playground where we can have a nice visual feedback either for the agents as well for the workflows, but there are also nice things included, for example, the evals. And also if you want to build RAG related stuff, it's all in there. And what is really interesting, we see it here, the model routing has been done with the help of the Vercel AI SDK. So they have taken the Vercel AI SDK as a base building block and added a lot of more great functionality to it. So this is just a short overview about Mastra. What we will then now do is head over here to the installation page and just create a simple Mastra startup project. So we are using here therefore this command here, npx create Mastra latest, and here we can then specify the name of our project. And here we see we can also select the components that we would like to use. So we will take all of them, tools, agent workflows, just to get familiar with the whole structure and what they can offer. And we can also specify here the LLM provider we would like to use. So in this case, OpenAI, this is also what we leave as default. So grab this command here, then head over to your favorite IDE, and now here let's adjust the naming. Instead of Hello Mastra, let's say the Agentic email workflow, and then press enter. Great, so now let's move into that created folder. So cd Agentic email workflow. So what we are seeing here is also the .env file here already with the correct OpenAI key attribute, where we later need to also move our key value in there. And here we see a Mastra folder, and there we have the starting file. So the main file is the index.ts file, and we see we create here this Mastra object where we define all the stuff, so the workflows that we have, the agents, the storage, and the logger. And the idea behind this is that we create this kind of God object of Mastra that we export and then can use anywhere in our code. So for example, if we are looking here in the workflow that was created for us, we can also then, if we need some, maybe from here an agent, we can use this Mastra, and then also, so let's import this first, import Mastra from the index, and then we can use it like this. And you see there we can actually get anything we need from this God object, like get an agent and get a logger, get an MCP server, and so on. So this is what I've learned from Mastra through the YouTube videos that I wanted to share with you. And so let's have a closer look now here on the workflows. So what is a workflow? If we go here to the documentation, a workflow lets you define and orchestrate complex sequences of tasks as typed steps connected by data flows. And this is exactly here what we've already done. So you see each function here is a step basically, and we can orchestrate them. And a workflow manages execution order, dependencies, branching, parallelism, and error handling. So there we define the steps with create step, including the input and the output schema and the business logic, and then we are composing these steps with a create workflow to define the execution flow. So straightforward. If we go here back to the workflow example, we can see this. So we have here on the bottom our weather workflow. This is the idea of this whole workflow. We have a input schema from the start, and this is like the output schema, so the result of this workflow. So we need to give into this workflow a city, and the output will be then the activities that we can do in this city. And then we see this workflow consists of two steps. We have the fetch weather and then the plan activities. And you see this is really nicely constructed with the then approach here. And then we can fire up this workflow with commit. So now let's have a look here on the first step, fetch weather. You see again it's containing an ID, a description, again what we give into this step is the input schema, so the city, and the output schema. And of course the output schema of one step should be then the input schema of the next step. And if we have a look here on plan activities, you see the input schema exactly is the forecast schema, so the output of the previous one. And then basically, so we have defined our input, our output, and then the thing that happens in the middle is the business logic, and this is happening here. So here you can write anything you want, just normal Typescript, JavaScript, whatever you like. And here you see we get the input data. So this is like a typed the schema that we get in. So pretty straightforward. This is the whole idea of building up a workflow in Mastra. And of course there are a lot of other nice things that we can do there. So here we have also the control flow section where we have all the documentation. If we, for example, maybe if the weather condition is like this, then do this thing. If it's like this condition, then do this thing. This is called branching that we also can do. And here we can also do multiple things at the same time, so with parallel, and they give you all the control flows that we need, also with looping, to while, and so on. So have a look here at the documentation. So basically what we need here is also a conditioning, a branching out to the different actions that we would like them to do. So I would say let's fire up the local dev to give you a better understanding of the local dev studio. So what we will do now here on the installation is again the part, of course, we need to set up the OpenAPI key, and then we can run there, run npm run dev. So from our previous approach, I take the same API key, and then in here I will paste it in, and now we can start the Mastra dev playground. And you see it's available under this URL now. And here we have a nice visualization of all the primitives that were also mentioned in the documentation. So here we can have a look on the dedicated agents that we then create. And we can also test them out here with this message box. And here we can also set up the parameters if we would like to. And yeah, just play around also here with the system prompt and do stuff that we otherwise need to do in the code. So, but we are focusing here now on the workflows. So let me show you this. We see here our weather workflow. You see here fetch weather and plan activities. And here is then the input that we define for the workflow. So let me place in here Munich as the start city. And then if we click on run, we can also, what is actually really nice, we can, if we click here, we see what was the input and what was the output, and we can also go here to show trace, and here we have a nice tracing what actually happened during all the steps. And yeah, this is the benefit of using a framework like Mastra, because in the native version that we had just this little CSV file to have like an audit. But here this is much better. Okay, so we have tested this out, and where is now, so this is like the whole trace. And what is now the end result, what we can do in Munich. Let me go back. Here we can also specify the runs that we had. So every time we make a new run, we see this then also in this run section here. So if I would run this again with Berlin, we see this is now the second one here with Berlin. The first one is Munich. So, oh no, sorry, this one here, this is the later one. This is Berlin, this is Munich. And here we can see now the result, the activities that we can do. Yeah, the weather is not so nice. So what we can do, yeah, some things that we can do here. Yeah, but now I guess you get the point here that I wanted to show you with all the goodies in place. And our goal is now to also build a workflow that is covering the things that we've done before. And again, we don't start here with nothing. I want to give you my plan, my approach to start like at 80% with initial code base up and running. And we will do a similar approach where we use Cloud Code and give Cloud Code also additional context to the whole Mastra documentation, because Mastra is providing us an MCP server containing all the documentation. So meaning when we plan this out with Claude Code, Claude can get all this context information about how to craft a workflow, how to craft a branch, and so on. And then having this context gives us a really good starting point with an initial workflow that is working. So I will show you now how to set this up, this MCP server. So depending on your operating system and what agentic coding you use, there are some examples here. And I'm using here Mac with Claude Code. So this is then here the command that we need. And here in our project, we just paste in this command. And therefore, so we are setting up the Mastra MCP docs for this project. And we can check this if we type in the Claude MCP list to make sure that this was successfully integrated. And we see, yeah, Master docs is connected. Nice. So let's, in this project, write in the Claude. And what we will do, like the first one is, now I go into the planning mode by typing Shift Tab twice. And now again, make a screenshot of the planning that we did here. And then really describe what we want to achieve. Like this one here. And we can then just paste this into the terminal. And now I will craft the prompt. I will pause the video and then I come back to show the whole prompt and also referencing to this MCP docs server to get the full power out of it. Okay, so we pasted in the diagram of the flow, and then I started out with use the Mastra MCP docs server to get information on workflows and help me build the workflow that processes our emails from Gmail. And then I'm just describing the flow. So the flow is like this to get the unread emails from Gmail, and then for each email process it like this, starting with the first activity. First get the intent of the email by passing the subject and the body to an agent, blah blah. And then what I'm describing is here that we need a reply agent that has a Gmail tool to send out a reply. We need a calendar agent with a tool of the Google Calendar to craft and send out meeting with the mail sender and so on. And what is really important in the end, please make sure that you have like applied KISS and Yagni to do not over-engineer, because Claude loves to over-engineer, to do so much stuff in there that is not really necessary. So again, nothing special in here, just describing, really descriptive what we want. And now I will use here enter, and I will have a look on the planning phase when we see that now Claude is using the master docs to get the informations on workflow, email, Gmail, and routing, and is searching the knowledge database for these things. So this is a good sign, because now we get the right context that we need. So I will now babysit this agent flow, and I'll come back in a second. So let me present you the plan that we have. So build a simple master workflow that processes Gmail emails with intent classification and routing to appropriate actions. So this is the architecture: Gmail, unread emails, then intent classification and route to action. And these are the actions: reply, meeting, human review, and archive. So here we start out to create a main workflow, email processing workflow, with the sequential steps of use create step for each processing stage, and apply the conditional branching with the branch for routing. Seems good, right? Then these are the steps: fetch the unread emails, process each email through the classification agent, route based on intent using the conditional branching, the reply agent with Gmail send tool, calendar agent with Google Calendar tool, store for human review, archive agent with Gmail archive tool. And these are the agent and tools that we need. So the classification agent analyzes the email, subject, body, returns intent, yes, reply agent. Then we have the calendar agent, the archive agent, and these are the tools: the Gmail tool for fetching, sending, archiving emails, correct. Google Calendar for creating meetings, correct. On local storage, simple file-based storage for the human review queue. Simple enum for the classification, reply, meeting, human review, archive. This is perfect. And these are the files to create. Seems pretty solid in my opinion. The only thing that we can do now is also like to say no and say yes, this is correct, and we already have the Google OAUTH token in place, so consider this as well for building the tools. This is what we also have done as a prerequisite, right? So let me grab the token that we have and also put it here in there, and then we use here the @ sign to reference the token with this, and then we go over this one more time because this is essential for crafting the tools. And we see this was quick. We see now use the existing token for the Google API authentication, and the rest is, so no additional OAuth needed, the rest stays the same. This is fine, and then we can now fire up and have our workflow in place. So I will do this, and then I see you in a couple of minutes. Okay, so it's crazy, I've just tested it out and it works perfectly, but let's go through what happened here. So here Claude created, if we now scroll back here to the result, the key features and everything that was created, we see we have now the classification agent, the reply agent, the calendar agent, archive agent, we have all the tools, and we have now this new workflow of email processing workflow. So let's have a look here on this workflow. Again, ID, description, we have the input schema and the output schema. And here we define how many emails we would like to process, and then here the output schema is the total processed and the results. This is an array, so the email ID, the intent, the action, success, and the details. And then we chain this up here with then we have the fetch email step, process email step, route email step, and then we have a mapping here based on the input data. So if we go now here to the fetch email step, here we use the get unread email tools for getting all the unread emails. Then we have the process email step. What do we have here? Process and classify each email. So here's the magic happening, where we then use the intent agent. So what we get in are the emails as an array, and these are the initial set of an email object. So the ID, the subject, from, body, and date. And what we get back from there is again an array, but here we have additionally to the email object also an intent that is related to that email object, and this could be either, like in our first native implementation, an enum, so reply, meeting, human review, and archive. And then we have here our business logic. So here the input data is what we're getting in, right? And then we loop here for all the emails. And here is where we concatenate again the subject, from, and the email body. Then we give this to the classification agent. So let's have a look on here on the prompt. So you're an email classification agent. Your job is to analyze the emails and classify them in one of the 4 categories: reply, meeting, human, archive. Perfect. So I guess, of course, this is only the first draft. Here you need then, like in the case before, where I needed to after adjust the prompt a little bit, but this is covering, I guess, in a good direction. So, and this is also great that is, for example, with the examples, so use examples if you can. And the model is GPT-4o Mini. Then we have the intent, valid intents. We check if this is valid, if the intent that we got back is valid, so if it's one of these, and then we push it, so email with the extracted intent to the processed email array. So then we have the route email step, and in here we go through all the processed emails, and then we have again here just a switch case where we then do the actions. So on reply we do the reply action, on meeting the other action. So, but here we have just dedicated agents in place, and these agents have then access to tools, as you can see here. So this is the syntax to connect an agent with a tool, and here we have the create event and send email. And you know what, this is good, so maybe I just show you this on the UI, therefore we have it. So just spin it up again, visit here the local host, and then we have here under workflows our new email processing. And the nice part is we have here in isolation all of the created agents, and we could test them out in isolation here if you would like to, just that you know. But here we are going out to the email workflow. I have just tested it out, and here we have a look here on my run what happened. So the fetch input, let's go here to the input. Here, nothing special, just that we specified that we want to process 10 emails, right? And here we have now our emails from Gmail. So my test emails and some other stuff that is lying around in my Gmail. Then we're going here into the process emails, into the input. Of course, this is again the same, right? The emails and the output. This is now where the magic happens, because you see we have here our email and then our intent. And this gives us a nice visualization for actually debugging and understanding what happened. So here I can now understand and go into detail if the intent was correctly extracted. So let's do this here just only for 1.2. So this was from my other email requesting, hey, what framework are you using to build agentic workflows? And the intent was reply, 100% correct. Then we have here just from Llama Index the newsletter, archive, perfect. Then we go into the wrote emails, and what will be the input? Right, the output of the previous one. So we see here email intent, stuff like that. We go into the output and we see what happened here. So reply sent for the first one, and let's check this out. I go here to my other email account, and yeah, voila. This is so cool. Thank you for reaching out for building agentic workflows. I primarily use Apache Airflow. Okay, this is not correct, but yeah, I like the style. Best regards, Johannes Müller. Nice. And also we have, I see here, what is this? Apparently the calendar agent also worked very fine, because this is the, yeah, this is the invitation sent from the calendar agent, as well then the email. Thank you for reaching out. I've scheduled a meeting to discuss MCP on Thursday. Wow, cool. Really, really nice. Where was I? Yeah, on this step here to actually understand all the things that happened here. So archived, and there should be also somewhere the meeting there. Yeah, cool. And I mean, this was just the first iteration where we use Cloud Code in combination with the MCP of Mastra, and you see how fine this worked, because we've done all this previous work getting the token, the diagram and stuff like that, and from here on we can make it even robust. The mapping here, I actually don't know what is happening here, to be honest, why we even need this step. I don't know, but I guess this is now a great little task for me to find out. And I also, this is only one, this was one iteration. I've done this previously, and I also want to show you the other approach. So if I go here into the email AI workflow and also then run here the local dev playground, you will see another approach how we can tackle this in master workflows. Here, and this was another, because I find this visualization so nice. This works like in batches, as I told you. So if I run this, we first do fetch all the emails that we have, and then we make the analyze intent. And from there we have an array, and then we do all these actions here in parallel. So basically what we do after this step, we are sending out, hey, this is our array. These are the emails with the intent, and then each action or agent is then from this array picking out the intent that they work on and just process them. And maybe I can show you this in a past run, or sadly there's no one here, but this is actually the visualization that I wanted to achieve with going out all on these branches here. So yeah, So this is the end of the video. I just wanted to give you the concept of Mastra workflows in combination to rapidly fire this up with Cloud Code in a combination with the MCP docs. And from there, it's then up to you to understand it. So don't be a follower, just be a student. Take the information that I have given to you and make your own mind about it and use it in your own advantage. If I would check all these different cases into the GitHub repository, and if you have any other question, also make sure that you join the school community if you have also, like Antonio, a question. And again, thank you for watching. See you the next time.